And we begin here at 5 o'clock with COVID cases mounting, this time in Clark County, which officials have now designated as high risk for transmission.
And I'm David Molko, and as these highly contagious variants take hold and hospitalizations rise, Tim Gordon takes a look at what local experts are now saying about stopping the spread.
We've been talking about it more than we've wanted to, with COVID-19's latest Omicron variants pushing risk levels back up this summer. It's happening in Clark County, where new case rates and hospitalizations got the CDC declaring it a high-risk COVID location. That comes with the recommendation to mask up inside, something Clark County Public Health also recommends right now.
We made the same recommendations, except the CDC numbers, and say, this is a time. We're not mandating anything, but this is a time when we're going to recommend that people wear masks in public indoor settings.
While these BA4 and BA5 variants aren't as deadly as Delta, they are still making plenty of people really sick. The worst cases end up in hospitals. In Clark County, that's Legacy Salmon Creek and Peace Health Southwest Washington Medical Centers. Right now, about 12% of hospital beds are occupied by patients with COVID-19.
We're not talking about influenza here. We're talking about something that potentially more severe. We've got, more than 10%, more than 1 out of every 10 beds in our hospitals now have a COVID patient.
So how are hospitals holding up? We asked the chief medical officer of Peace Health's Vancouver Hospital.
The good news is, as we're seeing this variant be less severe, we've seen fewer patients with very severe disease, and also in the background of having folks that are vaccinated and boosted, we're also seeing those fewer hospitalizations and less severe overall cases, which is great news.
Dr. Garber says about 60% of those COVID cases are incidental, meaning people came in with some other medical issue and tested positive for the virus. But more than 10% of ICU beds are COVID patients, and people are still dying from the disease.
What's your best advice to people to help keep them out of the hospital?
Yeah, so my best advice is to be up to date on your vaccines. They prevent infection. And even more so, prevent severe disease and hospitalizations.
And Dr. Melnick says masking up really can help stop the spread. Also, if you're feeling sick, stay home. I'm case in point. I tested negative with a home test this morning, but I've got a couple symptoms that are concerning, so I'm staying away from other people for now. Tim Gordon, KGW News.
Leading by example there. Okay, let's talk about the pandemic's economic woes now. And case in point, weddings. First, COVID put a pause on big celebrations, and now that we are back to a new normal, sort of, this peak wedding season, there is a new and perhaps equally challenging issue. Let's explain. Before the pandemic, the industry saw about 2.2 million weddings a year nationwide. That dropped drastically in 2020, but has then surged again to about 2.5 million this year. This is according to a survey from the Wedding Report. Now, here is the challenge. Spiking demand and once again inflation that has hit a 40-year high means everything costs more and vendors are booked out. Wedding coordinators like Elizabeth Kramer in Portland say given what they have been through, some businesses are now less willing to negotiate.
But also a lot of people aren't used to folks in the service industry saying, hey, I'm a person too, and I need to be able to talk about this stuff with you and to be paid equitably. So it's an evolving landscape for sure.
To save money, vendors suggest looking ahead to book on lower demand times, so not a Saturday during peak summer season, maybe a Tuesday in November. All right, new this afternoon, Portland is now putting its support behind two major freeway projects, the Rose Quarter expansion and a new I-5 bridge over the Columbia. Today, City Council voted to endorse both of them. That means the city is going to work with ODOT on the Rose Quarter expansion, which will help move that project forward. Portland also officially supporting plans now for a new interstate bridge. That proposed design was unveiled in May. We've got more on both developments and the conditions the city is putting on those projects. That's up for you now on KGW.com.
The man accused of a bias crime attack earlier this month is now charged in a second unrelated bias crime from April. Dylan Kesterson was arraigned in Multnomah County Court this morning. Between the two incidents, he faces now a total of 19 charges. On July 2nd, police arrested him after they said Kesterson yelled anti-Asian slurs and then attacked a family of Japanese descent on the East Bank Esplanade. The other incident is from April, when police say Kesterson harassed and assaulted several women based on their race. He has pleaded not guilty. Now to a big story out of Gresham. The city is putting the brakes on its school resource officer program, and that means no police officers will be stationed in Gresham area schools. Mike Benner is in our newsroom with more on this. Mike, how long is this expected to last?
Well, simply put, Laurel, we don't know. The police chief says there are a lot of moving parts. What he does know is that he is focused on this issue, and he'd like to get officers back in schools as soon as he can. As it stands right now, uniformed officers will be noticeably absent from Gresham area schools when school starts up in the fall. Keep in mind, 3 school districts operate within Gresham city limits. We're talking about Centennial, Gresham Barlow, and Reynolds. Administrators in those districts are now scrambling to find alternative security options. We're told the city is pausing the SRO program because of what boils down to a staffing shortage. The Gresham Police Department is down more than a dozen sworn officers. Chief of Police Travis Goldberg is taking officers who previously worked in schools and reassigning them to patrol the streets.
I want to recognize that I understand that the community is going to be very concerned about this, and I want them to know that this was not an easy decision on our part, and it truly comes down to staffing shortages. But I can say that everybody is working on this.
All right, I did connect with officials in both the Reynolds and Gresham Barlow school districts. Yes, they are concerned with the city pausing the SRO program, but they tell me they're hard at work looking for alternatives, and one alternative may be deputies from Multnomah County providing some of that security. David?
Interesting. Thank you, Mike. Well, an Oregon nonprofit is working to broaden the appeal of hunting. It is called Hunters of Color, and its goals include education and greater access to the outdoors. Let's bring in Brian Clerkley. Brian, the group says this is all about breaking down barriers.
Yeah, David, that's why the group provides a lot of monetary support. The program director says only 3% of hunters are people of color, so he started the organization to diversify hunting, along with instruction courses for participants. They also host archery events.
Here at the Filson store in Portland, the group Hunters of Color holds an event to teach people how to get into hunting. Sarah Nuama wants to get involved in more outdoor activities, so she decided to join the nonprofit. Sarah says she wants to connect with the outdoors and feel comfortable as a person of color.
It's actually a safe space finally for people to feel comfortable and confident to be in the outdoors and to participate in these spaces that we don't see ourselves and we might feel a little unwelcome.
Hunters of Color has been active since 2019. They were hit hard by the pandemic, but now the organization has grown into 600 people and expanded to other states. Jimmy Flatt started the group after not seeing a lot of diversity in hunting. His family is from Venezuela and the Philippines.
And then in 2016, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did a study that compiled all the demographics of hunting and found that 97% of all hunters identify as white.
Hunters of Color has educational and mentorship opportunities as well as other resources for participants to start their hunting journeys.
We will be doing actual hunting events where we'll be getting people out training to use shotguns, to be out in the field, and then eventually they'll culminate in a hunt where people get to actually do what we've been teaching people how to do.
In order to hunt, you have to have a license. Hunters of Color pays for all the upfront costs new hunters face, including the license. The organization gets funding from grants and donations.
For the sake of upholding our traditions, our culture, we need more people involved in conservation work and in hunting.
It's a great opportunity to feel like you can bond with other people of color doing outdoorsy things together.
Hunters of Color is in need of donations to keep doing what they're doing. They do have a website, and we will post a link on our website, kgw.com, for anyone who wants to donate.